Hard work, loyalty, and saving money used to work. Today, they might be holding you back. For a long time, hard work was a reliable path forward because the systems people worked inside were designed to reward time, effort, and consistency. Showing up early, staying late, learning the role deeply, and outperforming peers almost automatically translated into raises, promotions, and long-term security. Effort compounded because careers were linear. Skills aged slowly, and companies depended heavily on human knowledge that lived inside employees. If someone worked harder than the people around them, their value increased year after year. Experience itself became leverage, and loyalty reinforced that leverage. Hard work functioned like a multiplier inside a predictable machine. That machine no longer exists. Modern work environments are optimized for efficiency, scalability, and cost reduction, not for long-term accumulation of individual value. Most roles today are designed with clear output ceilings. There is only so much work one person can produce in a day, no matter how much effort they apply. Once that ceiling is reached, additional effort no longer creates proportional returns. Working harder does not mean earning more. It often just means burning out faster. The system captures the extra value without redistributing it to the individual generating it. At the same time, the lifespan of skills has collapsed. Tools, platforms, and processes now change at a pace that continuously erodes the value of experience. Skills that once remained relevant for decades can become outdated in just a few years. Entire job categories appear and disappear within a single economic cycle. This means that accumulated effort does not reliably compound over time. Instead of stacking value, many people find themselves running in place, constantly updating skills just to remain employable rather than advancing. Another critical shift is how rewards are distributed. In modern economies, productivity gains increasingly flow upward to owners, shareholders, and platforms rather than to workers. A person can generate more value than ever before while capturing a smaller share of it. Technology enables companies to scale output without scaling compensation. Algorithms, automation, and global competition compress wages while expanding profits elsewhere. As a result, effort and reward have become disconnected. The link between working harder and getting ahead has weakened to the point where it often no longer exists. Hard work has not disappeared as a requirement, but its role has fundamentally changed. Effort without leverage no longer leads to meaningful progress. Leverage comes from ownership, scale, and distribution. Ownership allows effort to compound because the individual participates in the upside of what they build. Scale allows output to grow beyond personal time and energy limits. Distribution ensures that effort reaches more people instead of remaining trapped inside a single role or organization. Without these elements, effort remains confined and capped. This is why so many people feel stuck despite doing everything they were told to do. They are applying effort in systems that are no longer designed to reward it. The frustration is not the result of laziness or lack of discipline. It is the result of structural change. Hard work is still necessary, but it is no longer sufficient on its own. In the current environment, effort only matters after leverage is in place. Without that foundation, hard work becomes motion without momentum, activity without advancement, and exhaustion without progress. For most of the 20th century, loyalty was a rational and often rewarding strategy. Staying with one company for a long time increased security, income, and status. Businesses were built around continuity, and markets moved slowly enough that long-term employees accumulated knowledge that could not easily be replaced. Processes were informal. Systems lived in people as heads, and experience created real power. The longer someone stayed, the more valuable they became. Promotions followed tenure. Benefits improved with time, and pensions rewarded endurance. Loyalty worked because it created leverage, and that leverage translated into stability. That environment has largely disappeared. Modern organizations are optimized for flexibility, cost efficiency, and rapid adjustment. Nearly everything is standardized, documented, and systematized. Knowledge is stored in software, not people. Training programs, internal documentation, and and automation make replacing workers faster and cheaper than ever before. When conditions change, decisions are made on spreadsheets, not on relationships or years of service. Loyalty rarely appears as a variable in those calculations. Staying longer does not protect someone. In many cases, it makes them more vulnerable. One of the biggest hidden costs of loyalty today is career risk. When someone commits too deeply to a single role, company, or industry, they narrow their options. As technology evolves and markets shift, entire functions can become obsolete almost overnight. If skills are tightly coupled to one employer or system, displacement becomes more damaging. The longer someone stays without adapting, the harder it becomes to pivot when change arrives. What once looked like stability quietly turns into fragility. Another cost is skill stagnation. Repeating the same work for years creates familiarity. But familiarity is not the same as relevance. Mastery of a task that mattered 5 or 10 years ago does not guarantee value today. Many people become extremely efficient at processes that no longer sit at the center of the market. Meanwhile, new tools and workflows emerge elsewhere, creating gaps that loyal employees often fail to notice until it is too late. Comfort delays growth, and loyalty can reinforce that comfort. Opportunity cost is the third and often least visible consequence. Time spent in one place is time not spent exploring other paths. Industries or business models. Loyalty closes doors by default, while someone is waiting for recognition or advancement that may never come. Alternatives continue to develop elsewhere. Over time, the cost of missed opportunities can far exceed any benefits loyalty once promised. In today's economy, leverage no longer comes from staying put. It comes from maintaining momentum, relevance, and choice. The only loyalty that holds real value is loyalty to personal growth, adaptability, and long-term trajectory. This does not mean abandoning commitments impulsively or acting without discipline. It means understanding that organizations will act in their own interest and that individuals must do the same. Loyalty as a moral virtue still exists, but loyalty as a career strategy has lost its power. The rules changed when companies gained the ability to replace people easily, restructure instantly, and operate without dependence on long-term employees. In this environment, tying identity and future security to one institution is no longer protection. It is exposure. For a long time, education functioned as one of the most reliable predictors of future success. This worked primarily because of scarcity. Degrees were rare. Advanced education was even rarer, and access to knowledge was limited. Earning a degree signaled intelligence, discipline, and specialized ability. Employers competed for educated workers, and compensation scaled with educational level. Most importantly, careers lasted long enough for the investment to make sense. Student debt could be paid off steadily because income increased predictably over time. Education was not just a signal, it was a structural advantage. That advantage eroded as access expanded. Over time, degrees shifted from being a differentiator to being a baseline requirement. Credential inflation turned education into a filtering mechanism rather than a competitive edge. What once set someone apart now simply allows them to pass automated screening systems. As more people earned degrees, the signaling power declined, but the cost of obtaining those credentials continued to rise. Education became more expensive while delivering less certainty in return. At the same time, the economics of education changed dramatically. Tuition costs grew far faster than wages, shifting the risk from institutions to individuals. Students were asked to take on large amounts of debt without any guarantee that the market would reward their credentials. In many fields, the return on investment became unclear. Graduates entered job markets saturated with similarly qualified candidates, competing for roles that did not pay enough to justify the financial burden they had taken on. The promise that education alone would secure a stable future no longer held. Another major shift came from how skills are developed and distributed. Practical, marketable skills can now be learned outside of traditional institutions at a fraction of the cost and time. Online platforms, communities, and real-world experimentation allow individuals to acquire relevant knowledge continuously. This undermines the monopoly that formal education once had over skill development. Learning is no longer a phase of life that ends in early adulthood. It is an ongoing process that must adapt to market changes in real time. The pace of change also reduced the lifespan of what is taught. Academic curricula move slowly, while industries evolve rapidly. By the time a program updates its material, the market may already be operating on new tools and models. This gap means that formal education often lags behind real-world demand. Degrees certify past learning, not future readiness. As a result, adaptability has become more valuable than any static credential. Education still matters, but its role has fundamentally changed. It no longer provides a predefined path to success. Instead, it serves as one component in a broader system of continuous learning. The people who succeed are not those with the most certificates, but those who can update their skills, shift directions, and respond to changing conditions. They treat education as a tool rather than a guarantee. In the modern economy, securing the future is not about completing a prescribed educational journey. It is about building a learning system that evolves alongside the market. The value lies not in what someone has studied, but in how quickly they can learn again when the rules change. For much of the past, playing it safe and being patient was a logical strategy because the systems people operated within were structured, scheduled, and predictable. Careers followed clear paths, promotions were tied to tenure, and markets moved at a pace that rewarded restraint. If someone avoided major mistakes and stayed in position long enough, progress eventually arrived. Waiting reduced risk because outcomes were largely guaranteed. Time itself worked as an ally, slowly converting patience into security. This approach depended on one critical condition: predictability. When timelines are known and rewards are delayed but certain, patience makes sense. It is rational to wait for a bus when there is a schedule posted on the wall. The uncertainty is limited to timing, not outcome. In those environments, moving too early or changing direction increased the chance of missing the reward entirely. Stability was preserved by staying put, and patience functioned as a form of discipline. That structure has disappeared. Modern economic systems no longer operate on clear schedules. Career paths are fragmented, industries shift rapidly, and outcomes are no longer guaranteed. Waiting in this environment does not reduce risk. It increases it. When there is no reliable timeline, patience turns into an action. Time no longer clarifies outcomes. It compounds uncertainty. Standing still does not preserve position because the environment continues to move regardless. In unscheduled systems, information comes from action rather than waiting. Progress is no longer linear, and success rarely arrives as a single delayed payoff. Instead, it emerges from repeated attempts, small experiments, and constant adjustment. Each attempt generates feedback. Each failure provides data. Over time, this process reduces uncertainty and increases competence. Those who move forward are not necessarily more talented or patient. They simply accumulate more attempts. Playing it safe often means avoiding mistakes. But in a rapidly changing environment, avoiding mistakes also means avoiding learning. Risk does not disappear when it is avoided. It is merely postponed and often amplified. People who wait for clarity frequently find that clarity never arrives. By the time conditions feel safe, opportunities have already passed or transformed into something else. The cost of waiting becomes invisible until it is irreversible. Patience has also been reframed by modern culture as a moral virtue rather than a strategic choice. This framing hides the fact that patience is only effective under certain conditions. When the system no longer guarantees outcomes, patience loses its strategic value. Action becomes the only way to gather information, test assumptions, and adapt to new realities. Modern advantage comes from iteration rather than endurance. Those who succeed are not holding out for a single perfect opportunity. They are engaging in many small, imperfect attempts. Each iteration increases understanding and optionality. Progress is created by movement, not by waiting for permission or certainty. In this environment, safety is not found in stillness. It is found in adaptability. Being patient without action no longer preserves opportunity. It erodes it. The world rewards those who move, learn, and adjust faster than it changes. The final reality of this system is that access matters more than merit, especially at the highest levels. On the surface, Government contracts appear to be awarded through open competition, with clear rules, public tenders, and formal evaluation criteria. The structure suggests fairness and transparency, but beneath that structure is a deeply relationship-driven ecosystem. Long before a contract is officially announced, many of the most powerful players already know it is coming, what it will likely require, and how it will be shaped. That early knowledge alone creates a massive advantage that no amount of raw talent can easily overcome. Over time, a small circle of companies becomes embedded within government operations. These firms understand the language, the paperwork, the compliance standards, and the unwritten expectations that govern how decisions are made. They know how to frame proposals in ways that align with political incentives, budget cycles, and institutional risk aversion. This familiarity reduces uncertainty for decision makers, who are under constant pressure to avoid failure, public criticism, and scandal. Choosing a known supplier is safer than betting on an unknown one, even if the unknown option is technically better. This dynamic is reinforced by lobbying and long-term influence. Large corporations invest heavily in maintaining proximity to power, funding research, advising policymakers, and shaping the conversation around national priorities. Much of this activity is legal and public, yet its cumulative effect is profound. Policy directions, technical standards, and procurement requirements often evolve in ways that conveniently align with the capabilities of existing contractors. By the time a contract becomes available, the field has already been tilted. The revolving door between government and industry further tightens this loop. Officials who once helped design regulations or oversee procurement later move into senior roles at the very companies that benefit from those rules. Their insider knowledge, personal relationships, and understanding of institutional psychology become invaluable assets when they return to public service or advise from the outside. The boundary between regulator and supplier grows increasingly blurred. Over time, this creates an ecosystem where trust is concentrated within a narrow network. For outsiders, this reality can feel discouraging, even hostile. Competing purely on quality or price is rarely enough. The system rewards reliability, familiarity, and political safety over disruption. Innovation is welcomed only when it does not threaten existing structures or introduce uncertainty. This is why new entrants often struggle for years without success, despite having strong products or ideas. Yet history shows that breakthroughs still happen when a new player manages to prove not just competence but dependability at scale. The system can slowly open. That first win, however small, changes perception. It transforms an outsider into a known entity. From that point forward, momentum begins to build, not because the system has changed, but because the company has finally been absorbed into it. In the end, government contracting is not just an economic process. It is a political and social one. Understanding how power, trust, and relationships flow through the system is as important as technical excellence. Those who succeed are not merely selling products or services. They are navigating an ecosystem where influence compounds over time, and proximity to decision makers often determines who gets fed first. If this opened your eyes, check out my other videos for more real-world rules for success. I'll see you there.